I was 7.5 when the war started. And we were living in San Francisco. My father was born in Bakersfield, California. My mother was born in Seattle, Washington.
I was 7 years old in 1941. So we lived in Los Angeles in a place called Uptown. That was the name of the place, but now it's called Koreatown.
We lived in Hollywood, right on Sunset Boulevard, at an intersection that was known as Gower Gulch, because a lot of part-time cowboy actors were looking around for acting jobs in that area. So I was a 10-year-old kid.
My parents were leasing property in Inglewood. They had a nursery.
In 1940, when I was 13, we lived in El Monte, which is a city east of Los Angeles. I would consider ourselves middle class. My father had his own business. He, by the way, was a graduate of Columbia University in business in 1923.
When the war broke out, I was 12 years old, and we had a large 20-acre compound or area of nursery that we lived in. It was a nice childhood time, seeing my father's business, and he was very successful, not only in his nursery business, but in civic affairs. He helped build the Japanese school, he helped build the Buddhist church in the area, and he was very prominent within the Japanese American community.
I was 12 years old at that time. We were living in San Pedro, California, up on the hillside in a stucco house. My father was a very successful businessman.
Well, I was 9 years, 11 months old in December. My father was a farmer. He farmed on the borderline of Long Beach and Lakewood. You know where Carson and Lakewood Boulevard is? That's where he farmed it.
I was 11 years old, downtown Los Angeles on Main Street, right by Olvera Street.
We lived in Boyle Heights area of Los Angeles, and the exact address is 2958 East 2nd Street. So it was on 2nd and Evergreen. At that time, I was 7 years old in December of 1941.
It was Sunday, and my family is not very religious, so we were all kind of hanging around, doing nothing, when I received a phone call from my cousin in Terminal Island, which is a fishing village across the water from San Pedro. And she was hyperventilating, and she said, when I answered the phone, and she said, "Did you hear?" I said, "What? Did you hear? Did you hear?" She kept saying that, and I said, "Stop, Em, stop." Her nickname is Em. I said, "Stop it. What didn't I hear?" She said, oh, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. I said, "Quit kidding."
On the night of December the 7th, the FBI came to our house looking for a particular individual, and they searched our house, had no warrant to do so, but they, of course, we had no idea of what our rights were at that time.
My brother and myself were at a movie theater in downtown Broadway. When we came out, it says the Japanese Navy bombed Pearl Harbor. That meant nothing to me. What's Pearl Harbor? But now I know. But initially, didn't know. Even when we got home, my parents were sort of vague as to what was Pearl Harbor.
We got a phone call. My grandfather was arrested by the FBI, who are waiting at the doorstep to arrest him the night of December 7th. And they took him away to federal prison. Of course, as a kid, I was really worried that because I really loved my grandpa. He was so kind to me.
A guy named P.G. Lucas, he was in charge of the water in where my father leased the land, farming. He came to make sure we were okay. And he's the one that kind of told my parents what they should do, not do, kind of thing. So, well, we were lucky to have two great families that helped us a lot.
Because we were living in an area that my father had established years and years before, the war industry, the aerospace came around us, and we were declared enemy aliens in the area and were ordered by the government to move out of the area. So my brother-in-law, who lived in Orange County, found a place for us, and we moved to Orange County.
My parents were leasing property in Inglewood. They had a nursery. And after December 7th, I'm not sure, within a matter of days, I guess they knew my parents were there because the Army came in. They took over the property. They put machine gun nests all around the property, anti-aircraft missile equipment. They took out the plants from the greenhouse, and the troops bunked inside the greenhouse. My father had to have a pass to get on and off the property. So we were prisoners already in Inglewood.
You know, I didn't hear anything about going to camp and stuff like that, but I, saw people making crate boxes. But I could see that, people were doing things like that. So I knew that something was going on, but, I didn't know that we were going to camp.
When I guess my parents found out that we were going to have to leave, then the next thing I knew was that we were then going to move to a close relative. We had an aunt and uncle living in Boyle Heights. And then just like all of a sudden, we left our business there in Hollywood to go live with my aunt and uncle, so that if and when we had to leave to somewhere else, we would not be separated from them.
The notices were not given to any homes. They were posted on telephone poles. So, but they had to use the census, the 1940 census. They had gone into that, which we're not supposed to, and got the names of all the Japanese. And so we knew that there was no way you could hide.
Families were separated and had to move away with the leaders of our community gone. So it was a traumatic time, economically and socially, for everybody.
We were told to assemble at the St. Mary Episcopal Church. So there must have been about 20 buses there. So then, in about 1,000 people.
And we had to report to the local church on May the 9th, 1942. So after we reported there with only what we could carry, and we had to turn in our cameras and weapons, so we boarded buses, and we had a police escort to Santa Anita horse race track, because that was actually the Santa Anita Assembly Center.
Well, when we got to Santa Anita, I eventually found out that we were one of the lucky ones. We got to live in the parking lot at Santa Anita, because the entire parking lot was covered with these barracks. So we lived in one of the barracks, whereas a few thousand of the 18,000 that went to Santa Anita had to live in those stinky horse stalls.
When it came time for us, then we went to Santa Anita Assembly Center, which was the racing park. They were telling us that we're going to go into the camps to protect us from the American public, because they were so angry at us. That was the word to us. So I get there, and I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm 12 years old, but I'm 13 by then, and I'm a little bit skeptical. But when I got in there, I knew that was all a lie. Because when I got there, was the barbed wire fences, seemed about 10 feet high, had guard towers with machine guns and searchlights pointing inward, and the MPs patrolling the outside of the fence, looking in. And that didn't make any sense to me if they were trying to protect us. And so then I had this terrible feeling at that time. I said, are they going to kill us? Is that why they put us in here?
See, the government, it took them about 6 months or so to make the permanent camps. Those are the concentration called Manzanar, Heart Mountain, Jerome, Rower.
It was frightening. You know, I think we were told to carry only what we can carry with one suitcase, and we were. I think a truck picked us up and went into the train station. We were all boarded or hoarded into train stations.
Initially, we had a dining car on this train. Typically, the dining car crew was all African Americans, and you could sense that they had empathy for us. They had an idea what was going on.
At the train stop, the signage said Vocation, Wyoming. But I read it as Vacation, Wyoming. I thought, wow, we're going to a nice place. But yet, in the middle of nowhere, see these black barracks, hundreds of black barracks. I thought, wow, is that where we're going to live? And it was behind barbed wire fence and armed guards, searchlights.
We were told where our barracks were. We walked into this bare barracks, which was about 20 by 20, and given a huge white cloth bag and told to go to that other area and fill it up with straw and lug it back into our barracks and put on our cots, our army cots. And that was our beginning. It was kind of frightening beginning, you know, and the barracks were so bare, we had nothing.
And the room that we lived in, for us, my family had 4 people, so our home for 3 years was 1 square room, 20 feet by 20 feet. And another condition that existed in all the camps was no privacy. In the mess hall, you're eating with a couple hundred other people, so no privacy. In the latrines, same thing. The shower room was just one open room with several showers, so you can take a shower, but there'd be other people there too. And the toilet facilities, there was just one open room with several commodes, and if you have to go, you gotta go.
The older people, they suffered because, for one thing, their dignity was gone. You know, the family units broke up because all the young kids would go eat with their friends in the other blocks. And so there was no family togetherness.
Well, I feel it's important for everybody to know, because this is U.S. history. We are part of American history. And the sad part is that I think in most all the schools, they omit this part of American history. And so I think it needs to be put in there and reminded to everybody, especially for the students, to know what happened in the past. And so as they grow up and try to see if they can do whatever they can to maintain U.S. and its history and prevent something like this from happening again. Well, for me, I would think I can wrap everything up with one word: respect. Have respect for other people, regardless of who or where, ethnicity and religion and so on. If we can all respect each other, then I think there would be a much greater chance for us to be able to get along and try to avoid a lot of the problems that we are still having.
Well, just like 9/11, when they attacked the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, and then they said, incarcerate all the Muslims because the terrorists look like Muslim. But they said, no, that's not right. They said, no, because there's good Muslim and bad Muslim. You can't take them all and put them behind barbed wire fence and armed guard, just like the Japanese were incarcerated during World War II. So that was a big, good example that Still, America didn't learn its lesson, and they tried to incarcerate the Muslims after 9/11. So that's why the Japanese American Museum is there in Little Tokyo, to make sure it doesn't happen again to anybody anywhere. Well, mainly I feel everyone has to be vigilant about their civil liberties, not only about themselves, but others too. Because if they don't care about others, no one's going to care about you. So you have to be vigilant for the whole community that keep your civil rights.
It's important to be compassionate. When we don't see people as people with a life, then that's how I think we start doing what we're doing right now in our country. Even though you're really young when something happens, like I was basically 2 to 5, when you're that young, you may think that you don't understand the gravity at the moment of what you're going through. But it stays with you. It affects your whole life. I didn't realize the extent to which the camp experience affected me.
There was a very much anti-Japanese mentality at that time, and because of that, I felt like our president succumbed to the influences of the West Coast and made sure that as a group we were sent out away. And I don't think it was all because of the war effort or all. I think it was all political. And I feel that that kind of mentality is going on now. And we're singling out groups of people on the basis of the color of their skin or their racial or their religious origin. And I think in a very low-keyed way, we're being propagandized against a group of people. And as such, that we as American citizens who've gone through this kind of thing should be very aware and be wary and alert people that it can happen again. And we mustn't let it happen again to any group of people purely on the basis of what they look like.
I say, you know what? Just because somebody's different than you should not hate or dislike them. If you're a short person, should you hate all tall people? And so then should you hate a person because they're different ethnicity, different color of the skin? No.
I think that, we always have to work to support the underdog. I feel that, the recent immigrants need all the help that they can get so that they could also succeed.
I think deep down what it is what's happening in America today. We're seeing a lot of hatred and division. We despise people of different religions, different races, how they dress, and these things that tend to divide us. And we fear that the evacuation sort of thing, the creation of concentration camps, could happen again if we don't speak out.
And I think it's important for everybody to know their history. I think that this would help a lot if people understood what happened, because with the rise, there's so much anti-Semitism again, with Muslims having their problems with discrimination. I think it's really, really important for people to know their history and know other people's history.
We want you to be good citizens who are not only loyal to America, but conscious of the differences that we have and how these differences can enrich us.
We should know about what happened to us so that it won't ever happen to anybody else again. No one else should go through what we went through. It's an American tragedy, and we should all understand it as such.
Just to be aware of where you are and not be complacent like I was as a 13-year-old, to know what's going on in this world and be ready to stand up against what is wrong, and to be ready to address and try to right any wrongs that can happen to a person living next door to you or my friends or whatever. That they need to be aware that age isn't a way out just to say, oh well, let them take care of it. I think each and every one of us, no matter how old we are, need to be aware of what can happen to our fellow man.